About Laysha before we jump in, even though we have her bio, and that, I am from this community. Many of you have seen or heard of Laysha over the years. And I just remember sort of paying attention to her career and being so inspired by her work, the way that she shows up, the way that she prepares, the way that she nurtures. And so when I had the opportunity to read the book, I'm like, oh, I see. I see. And what I have loved the most is watching the unfolding. The where you were was awesome, but it's not where you're at now. And just watching just the evolution and the level of comfort and engagement and how that has evolved over the time that I've known you. So I just want to say I'm proud of you. I'm inspired by you, and I am deeply honored to be in this conversation with you.
And if I may say, I'm going to start with, I want to be intentional about how I use my platform. And so when I'm in these spaces and have an opportunity to lift up others and allow them to shine too, that's really important to me. And so when I was blessed to have this opportunity to support a Minneapolis-based stop on the book tour, I wanted one to be an independent bookstore, because I think that is so important to support independent bookstores and small businesses, but also to pick someone to be in conversation with. There is enough room for all of our lights to shine, and I have watched you shine and do so much in our community and not always get the credit or recognition that I think you deserve, but you continue to do the work. And so it was quite easy for me when I said, gosh, I would love to have Chanda do this if she was willing. And you said yes immediately, and that means a lot to me. And as I said to you many times, this is an opportunity to share the spotlight, because you do so much that so many people I know benefit from. And for that, I'm grateful. So thank you. Thank you. And I would be remiss if I didn't also say welcome and thank you for coming. You throw a party, you never know who's going to come. And it's just a reunion of sorts. I see so many different people from so many portions of my life, and that matters. Relationships matter. And I talk quite a bit about that in the book, and just to see all of you, it makes me emotional, quite frankly. And I often say relationships will heal us, and they will save us. And given the chaos in the world, I hope this is a reminder of the power of bringing great people together. And so as we have that conversation, I hope that you all are building community, getting inspired, building sort of the fuel that is required to go out and do great things in the world, because I'm certainly getting that wonderful vibe from all of you. I've got everything from Miss Ruby, who is in the book, by the way. Miss Ruby, so when you read that story, of course, my husband, Bill, who is also prominently featured in the book. So many from my Target family who are also very much featured and connected in the book. My business partners, Carrie and Susan, who are here. Where's Teresa? Hi. Executive assistant, her mom and dad who drove in. Great to see you. Senator Klobuchar, who is busy trying to do great things for us. State of Minnesota, but all over the country and the world, quite frankly. So it means a great deal that we've been friends for over 25 years, and she shows up for her friends, right? In big and small ways, and this is a great manifestation of that. She's doing really incredible work on our behalf, so thank you for being a great friend first, and a great senator as well. But just so many members of the family. Hi, Blanche. Oh my goodness, I could go on and on and on, but we won't have time to get to the conversation. But know that if I didn't call out your name, it certainly doesn't mean that I don't feel great joy that you're here, and gratitude.
All right, let's get to it. Let's do it then. And I appreciate the fact that you're bringing up the importance of being in relationship and community, particularly with what's going on in the world today. And so what does it mean to lead like you mean it?
Yeah, it's, in many ways, I think the book couldn't come out at a better time. I think the world needs these messages now more than ever. And I think we all want to be happy and healthy. Financially secure. We want to find opportunities to do meaningful work and to do things that are purpose-led. And this book, Lead Like You Mean It, offers, I think, tools and resources that really do help us all lead with meaning. And it's not just for executives. I truly believe the way that it was written and curated makes it for everyone. And I believe in taking a holistic approach to our lives and careers. They're often sort of separated historically, and this book really does talk about bringing them together in ways that add value. And the book calls us to make intentional choices about our life and career. What will you say yes to? And even more importantly, what will you say no to? I call it the strategic yes and the strategic no. And leading with meaning at its core is also operating with integrity, with intention, and with humanity. Things that feel a bit out of favor at the moment, but I would argue never go out of style. And it's also about acting with integrity and ethically. Ethics matter. And in addition to acting ethically, you're acting from your purpose when you're leading with meaning. You know your why, what you are called to do at work and in the world, right? Your reason for being. And I often say that your personal purpose statement, which is not your work's purpose statement rather, but your personal purpose statement is a lantern that lights and guides your way, but it's also a measuring stick that holds you accountable to make progress. And it's about making progress, not being perfect, because we're all on a journey. But those are some of the things that are at the core of leading with meaning, along with, relationships, championing not only yourself, but lifting up and supporting others and being of service and leaving a positive legacy that ultimately you and others can be proud of.
Yeah, I want to talk about the personal purpose statement, but before we go there, you're talking about showing up as your whole self. And I know that some of us hold that back for many, many reasons. But can you talk to me about the internal reflection and healing that is often needed before you can lead with that level of purpose and integration?
Yeah, great question. And I was one of those people who held back. For many who know me well, I've always been a very private person and held back a lot and compartmentalized my work self and personal self to protect myself, I thought, and to put up my armor. And so the book in many ways was an opportunity to be more vulnerable and to unpack those layers. And when I'm mentoring and sponsoring folks, I often ask them a very simple question. Do you believe in yourself? And you would think that immediate response would be yes, of course I believe in myself. And yet so often the people that I'm asking that to stumble over it. They struggle with that response. But who better to bet on and believe in than you, right? And it's not just believing in you, it's knowing who you are deep down inside. And it's showing up for yourself, right? Telling your story with confidence and standing in your power. And it's also focusing on your overall well-being. Something that I think when I was early in my life and career didn't do as well as I'm attempting to do now, right? That holistic well-being is a very important part of the self-work and healing that I think is required prior to fully writing out, and not just writing out, but living your personal purpose. And when I say holistic, it's your physical health, your mental health, spiritual health, social, the community that you're a part of, but also your financial well-being, which is also one of those things that often holds us back. And I believe that we're more capable and effective in leading and caring for others when we give ourselves the permission to and then act on taking care of ourselves and investing in ourselves. I think so many people, often women, I think, are so busy taking care of other people that we deprioritize taking care of ourselves and doing that kind of self-work. And so if you're looking for permission, granted, right? Granted, self-care and that self-work is not selfish, it's essential.
Yeah, I mean, what a simple question, and I have encountered moments like that that just stop you because you're so busy moving that you don't necessarily think about who you are in that particular moment. to that personal purpose statement, because it feels like that could also be part of that healing, is being very, very clear on who you are and your why. And so can you talk about that? And then can you also share for those that are still working on their statements, what their advice would be for defining and living into the purpose that was meant for them?
Absolutely. And if you have one and you're not living it out, to come back and think about why, and does it need to be refreshed in some way, because it's yours to write and to keep and to live. And what I love about a personal purpose statement is it really does put you in the driver's seat. You know, so often if we're a part of, whether it's a business or a nonprofit or the government, you know the purpose statement or the mission of that organization, right? We can quote it, it's been in speeches, it's on posters, we could, sort of say it like it's the pledge. And yet, do you have a personal purpose statement of your own that is a guide for you? And if you don't, I would just challenge you to spend some time investing and reflecting on what that could and should be, and then how you would bring that to life. And so in the book, I do spend a lot of time talking about and sharing some inspiring stories and examples, I think, of purpose statements. Yes, for companies and organizations, but also for individuals, that hopefully can be a starting point for you as you're working on your own personal purpose statement. And I also have some questions in there that you can reflect on. So think about, what is it that you want to do? What's the impact that you want to make? How does where you spend your time and energy align with the impact that you'd like to make? Do you have the right resources and capabilities, relationships, to make that purpose real? Not just a statement on the walls or on a poster, but active, as we say, in the halls or in your actual life. And it's very important to think, gosh, having a personal purpose statement is free, because again, it allows you to think about what is most important for you. It's a filter through which you can make decisions about your career and your life. And the most important thing to remember, I think, is that purpose is power. It's your power. And you're the CEO of your life and career, and you get to make the decisions about what's right for you. Other folks can have a voice and share insights with you that can inform what that personal purpose statement is. But ultimately, the vote is yours. It's your life to lead. And so it's empowering, actually. It can be hard. It can be hard.
I love it.
I got a little amen corner here. Thank you, Miss Ruby. But it is actually quite empowering. And for me, my purpose is to be of service. I didn't articulate it that way when I was growing up, but it was what I felt called to do. And as I've evolved in my life and career, I continue to hone in on, based on my life, age, and stage, where I feel like that service can be of greatest use. And more recently, that is to help expand more opportunities for women, people of color, and other underrepresented communities. But it's at its core, being of service has been my purpose, in big and small ways every day. Some days I do pretty good, other days not so good. But I just get back up and keep trying, and it's helped center me. And I hope that as you reflect on what your personal purpose statement is, it's something that inspires you, that really gets you excited about getting up every day and working on it, even when things are difficult. And that it puts you in community with people who can help you realize the potential of that personal purpose statement.
Yeah, I think about how the universe shows up when you have clarity. And you started out naming names, and I could see the emotion in your face. There is something about being in a place that you're from and you've contributed to, and you get to see faces that are here to support you. And relationships are important to both of us, and they're really essential, I think, for personal fulfillment. We are moving really quickly in our lives. Can you say more about the value of nurturing relationships, both for your life holistically, but how that also benefits you in business.
Yeah, but relationships are everything. You know, I think at the end of the day, hello, Sandra. So more members of the family showing up. And so in pure church mode, I'm like, my new personal privilege. Great to see you. But, you know, I think at the end of the day, when we're all writing our love letter to life, you know, my job title isn't going to matter. It really isn't. And I had a hell of a nearly 33-year career at Target, Fortune 30 company. I've done some extraordinary things. In fact, with many of you in the room. So there are a few things in life you do well by yourself, and so a lot of the hands that made those great things possible are in this room. But that's not going to be what we talk about either. I think the love letter to life is really going to be the people that we've loved, that we've helped, that we've nurtured, who we've helped lift up, who we've helped them establish their personal purpose statement so that they can do great things in the world. And then there's a ripple effect from that. You then help and pay that forward to the next group of folks who can be their best, do their best. Like, that's the love letter to life that I'm striving for. And that's possible, I believe, through relationships. There is no way I would have the blessed and highly favored life that I have without incredible relationships. I think they are essential to our success and joy in our lives and our careers, right? As my grandmother would say, there are a few things in life you do well by yourself. Relationships are essential. And in the book, I talk about making sure that you have developed your kitchen cabinet, right? Your kitchen cabinet is your personal and professional board of directors, right? In the business context, we were often taught about, you know, who are the right, you know, mentor sponsors, allies in the work environment, but little attention was given to what was happening in our personal lives. And so again, in this book, I'm talking about a holistic approach to our lives and careers, which means this kitchen cabinet should be stocked with people that impact your life and your career, right? And as you're stocking that kitchen cabinet, remember they're not lifetime appointments, right? You're the CEO of your life and career, right? People can come in and out of the kitchen cabinet based upon what your needs are at varying stages of your life and of your career. There are some folks who've been in my kitchen cabinet for decades, and others who are more transactional, and I use that word with intention because transactional isn't always bad when it is combined with transparency. And so I've had folks come in and there's a very specific skill that they bring to the table, and we talk about that, and they're actually grateful. It's a very defined assignment or type of expertise, which means that, you know, we don't have to meet every week or every month, but they're on call. So again, when it's with the right level of transparency and clarity, it can be mutually beneficial. And so stock that kitchen cabinet with everything from what I call, you know, the cheerleaders, the people who are in your hype squad and who are lifting you up and giving you energy and hope when things are challenging. But there are also the challengers in my kitchen cabinet who give me tough love. Don't just say what I want to hear, tell me what I need to hear. And they're really pushing me in a different way towards growth, pushing me outside of my comfort zone. So the book, I do talk about the varying types of relationships that can help you personally and professionally. And one of the most important decisions I think I've made in terms of relationships for my life and career was actually my husband, right? And this is Bill, who's also featured in the book, but a little story with my publisher and editor. Yes. You know, it's in a business book, a book on leadership. I said, you know, I'd like to include not just the business relationships, but the personal relationships, including with my spouse and partner, and Carrie, who's been in the weeds with me on this book. We fought about it a lot, not Carrie and I, but with the publisher. She just couldn't get her head around why I would want to talk about my spouse in a leadership book. And I'm like, it makes my point around the importance of a holistic approach to your life and career. And it is one of the most important decisions that you can make. They will either help accelerate your purpose and your impact, or they can be a hindrance to them. So it's a really important choice that you should make. And ultimately, after lots of fights and negotiations with the publisher and many rewrites, Bill is featured, and
We had our fights too.
Yeah. bring him to these book talks. He's like a part of the conversation, right? But there is a very personal and very vulnerable story about Bill and I at the end of the book. And it was, without a doubt, the hardest thing for me to write in the book. And there were times where I thought, gosh, it would just be easier in some ways if I didn't put it in. But when you go back to your personal purpose, wanting to be of service, wanting to help others be their best and do their best, I thought there was a great lesson in it. And so we talked about it as a family. And Bill did not read the whole book as I went, but that one portion of a chapter, he did read every single rewrite of it, and it was rewritten many, many times. And with his permission, I have shared, and so know that I'm not outing him inappropriately. But each time we rewrote it, Bill cried.
That's Bill.
He was about to cry right there.
I
You
know.
just stopped it. He was on his way, I saw it.
But that's the care I wanted. He didn't have to read the whole rest of it. He did eventually, but it was a very personal, vulnerable part of our lives, and it's a very tightly curated portion of our life. But what Bill said that also struck me, he said, at the end of the day, I think people will understand the challenges and the resilience and love, but what they won't necessarily understand was it was so much worse than what you've written. So much worse than what you've written, and what you exercised was restraint and grace in a way. I said, and forgiveness. And so I share that just because that's what I was attempting to do. There aren't any spreadsheets, there are no Gantt charts, the traditional case studies in a leadership book that you might expect. You're not gonna find them. But you will find stories and lessons that I hope will help you do your best and be your best. And there are some reflection questions in each of the chapters that I partnered with a leadership development firm that would help you reflect. Again, not just listen to my story, but think about what does this mean in my own life and in my own career, or with the people that I'm mentoring and sponsoring.
So, what am I feeling right now?
As you watch my food cry.
Yeah, your boo thing over here trying to hold it together. What I'm experiencing is a deep commitment and love. What I'm experiencing is a level of vulnerability that I wish more leaders would share. Because we're always navigating something underneath that impacts us at work or how we show up. And those things unaddressed can impact you leading with purpose. And there is just, I can feel the energy of it, perhaps some curiosity, so go buy the book and then you'll find out what happened, and how that moved. But I think that, Laysha, in a moment where it is easy to play it safe, in a moment where people are being asked to scale back, to do less with more, I think that you've already said it, but I'm experiencing this, I'm talking to people that are feeling this, that they are navigating painful periods of life alone. And it's incredibly difficult. And so, how do we stay connected to purpose and grow while we're managing safety, more with less, all the things?
It's a powerful question and a powerful time. But I'm reminded of my grandmother's, my great-great-grandmother was 105 when she passed, and both blood relatives and those of their found family would just remind me that this too shall pass, right? This too shall pass. And it is a calming and grounding thing for me to know about the generations who have been through significant challenges before me, and as we would say, made a way out of no way, and found like-minded people, found community, found sometimes even unusual suspects to come together to find some common ground to take a step forward, and then a step back, and then a step forward, right? And so I stay grounded in kind of that history of what seemed impossible and then became improbable and then it became inevitable, right? So there is an arc to this that helps me stay grounded. And I do believe that you can't go through these things alone. I think so often in leadership literature it talks about go it aloneness, it's lonely at the top. It doesn't need to be, right? Phone a friend, build your kitchen cabinet, build community. Those are the things that will sustain you, help you, quite frankly, find ideas and solution to some of the most challenging problems that exist, right? You can never have all the ideas, and even if you do, you can't execute them all, right? So this idea of having diverse perspectives and others around you will only make your ability to solve big problems in the world or to innovate that much better. So I would say remember the arc of history and justice. I would say that personal purpose statement, very important. Have a life and career plan, right? That'll ground you, I think, in these difficult and uncertain times. I would also suggest that we have to get comfortable being uncomfortable as well. This ability to get outside of our comfort zone and live a little in the discomfort, because where there is discomfort, I think ultimately there's learning and growth, and there's opportunity on the other side of it as well. Not always comfortable to be in, but important to sort of learn how to sit in it a bit and find where you can leverage it around opportunity and growth would be another thing I'd say. And then take smart risks. When things like this are unsettling, like I said, don't waste a crisis. Sometimes there's great opportunity in it. So if you are also thinking about ways to take really smart risks and are framing up what your risk appetite is, right? Like how much risk are you willing to endure personally and professionally in pursuit of your purpose and your goals? It will help you make choices around the risk and the reward from the decisions that you're making. And in the book, I do talk quite a bit about how to move through that, or some examples of moving through that. And the other I'd offer is scenario planning. Certainly something I did a lot in my professional life, something I still do on the nonprofit and for-profit boards that I'm on, and I suppose even in our personal life we're doing scenario planning, right? So it allows you, where possible, to strategically, proactively plan, right? What could happen? What's likely to happen? What would you prefer happen? But these scenarios just give you, I think, a competitive advantage, a position of strength, because you've been able to start to think through some of the possibilities, and then you can adapt based upon what's happening in real time in your life. But it helps me stay grounded and connected to my agency when I'm able to get insights in, brainstorm with trusted partners, and have some plans in place that then I can kind of activate on.
Yeah, so I have a question here that you just really called in because you called your grandmother's names. And you also talked about groundedness. And so there's a beautiful line in the book that has sat with me. As much as you change, you are always you. Can you talk about what it means to find gold in your roots and how it helps leaders stay grounded even while they're evolving?
Yeah, also personal. I grew up in a town in rural Indiana, and the town only had 700 people. And we didn't even live in town, we lived outside of town. Is that the suburbs of the tiny little town? Can you call the suburb?
No, I don't think so.
No. Okay. So there's a cornfield on one side, soybean field on the other, not a suburb? Okay. Dirt road when we first moved there, then a little gravel, then before I went off to college, a little bit of tar, it almost was paved, almost dirt, yeah. Texas, you know, the ribbons. I have plucked chickens and milked cows, believe it or not, and we had a huge garden. And we moved out there when I was in first grade because of the education system being better, so my parents made what I thought was a bold and courageous decision because they wanted us to have a better shot in life through education. But what I hadn't banked on when I was 6, 7 was that I would be the only black kid in my class from first grade through graduating from high school. Yeah. And it was was challenging in rural Indiana, right? So I was the first one, the only one, or one of a few in lots and lots of situations. And so as I think about, sort of fast forwarding to those moments, a kid in that environment, a kid who went to Head Start, right, early childhood program for low-income families, I had not imagined that as a trajectory into the C-suite of a Fortune 30 company. And at times when I was early in my career, I didn't lean into my rural roots. I wanted to be a grown-up. I wanted to get a big girl suit and prove that I deserved to be there. And I didn't want to talk about my country upbringing. I didn't want to be seen as a country bumpkin. I was trying to, I wanted to be sophisticated and seen as in control. And I realized that was, not that I shouldn't want to be perceived as capable, but there was gold in my roots. Often the thing that maybe is perceived as a curse or an Achilles heel, when reframed and when you connect to it, can actually become a superpower. The thing that you fight against can be the thing that actually brings you in. And so it reminded me, as I moved through corporate America, that thing about being the first one, the only one, or one of a few, that I had done since I was a little girl. Turns out it's like that in corporate America too. And so for some who are struggling, like, this is hard and weird, like, it is challenging, but I know how to do that. I've been there. I know what it feels like. I know how to move in that space. I know how to relate to people who are from very different backgrounds than I am, and build real relationships and real community with them. I also know how to work with those who don't want to build relationships and community with them because they just chose not to see me. And so that became something that I've been able to use quite successfully in my life and career that started in my rural upbringing. There was gold in those roots if I learned to mine them. And so I just offer that in the book as an opportunity for all of us to reconnect with our origin story. Love on things that, give you energy and make you proud, but sort of get your spade out and see if there's maybe something that wasn't so motivating, maybe even something that was painful, that you didn't like to talk about very much, and reflect on it. Maybe there's something magical in it that will allow you to be even more of who you were meant to be.
Yeah, because those are often the things that hold you back. What I loved is while you were talking is the in the room, and so you obviously have struck a chord of things that we're moving around, and what I hear you say is you don't move around yourself, right? You are you. Where you go, you are, and that if you love that, if you curate experiences that allow you to stay grounded, and if you know what you're here to do, that is sort of the roots, the groundedness that you need to be able to move and weather some things. Yeah. And so I appreciate that. You have to weather some stuff? Yeah, okay.
It's empowering too. I think people, it makes you more relatable as well. I think particularly in leadership positions, people often see you as sort of this almost otherworldly person, right? Not like the rest of us. Have all the answers, have a cush life, just sort of showed up in your senior role. And leaders are humans, with all of the sort of flaws and lovely things that come with being human. And I think once I started to share more, which took me a while to do in all candor, and quite frankly I'm still on a journey, I think it was more relatable, much more relatable. And I think I was able to be of greater service by sharing those things as well.
I'm all smiling because I feel like that's what I was trying to get to in the introduction, because I've watched you sort of go from
Like, put them up?
not really like I'm gonna fight you, but don't be asking me something that I didn't.
But I might.
Like I've watched that. So
Armor
like,
up to maybe I can take my armor down a little.
Yeah.
But it's difficult, right? When you've been in spaces where people have designed systems and the way in which the world operates to not be for you, then I think you develop coping mechanisms to ensure that you're able to still accomplish the things in the world that you think you have the God-given right to do.
And visibility brings a lot of judgment. You know anything about that, Senator?
I just keep thinking of my difficult workplace in Washington. Oh, I really can't do scenario planning.
We should have this session there. Let's do it. You think we could pull it off in the House and the Senate?
So in the book, I mean, I'm telling you the truth. Like, this is just a delightful conversation. And, you know, in the book, you called many people's names, which I also love. And you started about the importance of saying names. I think that you do that quite well. And you don't know how you've impacted someone or how someone has evolved your story if you don't share it, if you don't say their names. And you just do that so well. You've done it in the book. And your encounter with Dr. Maya Angelou, in her words, as long as I am here, I will be of use. Right? As long as I'm here, I will be of use. Struck a deep chord. How have those words influenced how you lead, especially when you have tough decisions or uncharted paths?
Yeah. Well, she is spectacular, and still inspires me to this day. But I had the opportunity to interview Dr. Angelo as a part of my career at Target. And we were doing a series, and she was going to be a part of it. And I remember talking to my boss at the time that the project was coming together very quickly, and I was like, who gets to interview her? Maybe we'll get Oprah or Barbara Walters. And he was like, have you seen our budget? I was thinking you would interview her. And it was Michael Francis, if you know Michael. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, that's amazing, and yet I'm scared to death. Like, that is a huge opportunity that I'm not quite sure I'm ready for. But we had an amazing team, of course, and we got prepared to do this, and we were going to her home in Winston-Salem. What an opportunity, right? And she welcomed us into her home. I remember getting out of the car thinking, oh, I wish prayer and a shot of really great. So I got the prayer, and I didn't get a shot of the adult beverage until later. I was on the clock, we couldn't do that, but I just recall being in her home. She knew we were nervous. She probably knew that, you know, we were questioning ourselves as well. And as the team was getting set up, she just, you know, toured us around her place. We sat in her kitchen as we were getting set up for the interview in her living room. She shared stories with us. And by the time we did do the interview, she was elevated, and I was sort of down on a little stool, just looking up at her like a little kid, because we were also filming her and taking notes. And I don't get starstruck a ton, but she was one. I just got caught up in everything she said. I found myself, okay, stay focused, right? I have a job to do, I need to get all the notes. And she said many, many things. And I have the transcript, believe it or not, I still have the transcript from that interview. I remember I was like, do I have to turn this in? Like, oh no, nobody wants that. Back then it was like typed up too. For some of you who are old enough to remember typing. I still have it, and I circled those 11 words. As long as I am here, I will be of use. And it struck me as a message for me and the world, because it was an articulation of my purpose to be of service, but done more poetically, and in a way that I could take it back and use it as a reminder to ensure that my daily behaviors and actions were attempting to move in that direction. And as we talked about it, her push was to not make service about what you do on like an MLK day or your company's, you know, day of service. Like, how is it that you can be of service through your actions, big and small, every day? And even then, it helped me reframe how I could be of service, even in the work context, right? So, of service to the customers, which we called guests, of service to the employees, which we call team, to the community and the partners that you work with. How are you being of service to the shareholders? Like, service, she just opened my mind up to be thinking about in sphere of where I was leading and living, where I could be of service. And so it's really helped provide a guide for me from that moment on. And she was just an extraordinary storyteller and imparted many, many lessons, some tough love too. She would give it to you, let me be clear.
No, I'm clear she could.
Very spirited.
I think that, when I think about it as you're talking, like she has modeled what it means to be yourself,
Oh, yeah.
right? Bravery, vulnerability, modeling, calling people into their best selves, which that is what that feels like.
And what she did beautifully, my words would be that she called people out to call them in,
Yeah.
right? It sort of felt like, auntie on the porch or in the community growing up. Before we moved to Mountain City, because there were really no porches that were close enough that they could see you, but if you're visiting a relative and if you were doing something you shouldn't have, someone would call you out. But it was done to call you into the community, in to show you love, in to help you grow. And so she used that power in a way that I think was aligned with her purpose. It wasn't just to sort of make you feel bad or to shame you or blame you. It was to be of service to you. If you could listen and be still and accept the feedback that she was providing.
I love it, and it's a good reminder of what we need to be doing now because we're so stressed. And people are moving very quickly and thinking about what they have to do. And I think to be able to offer a call in with love, a call out with love, a call in to deeper purpose, feels like there's a good time for that. In addition to her, you name other powerful mentors in your life. Ms. Coretta Scott King, who you mentioned right away in that book, and Mr. Brooks Dayton. So how have their influence showed up in your life and how you lead?
Yeah. And what's fun for me about including them is they're very different people. Right? Civil rights icon, leader in her own right, Coretta Scott King, and the wife of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and of course Bruce Dayton, one of the founding family members of the company where I spent nearly 33 years of my professional life, and both had a tremendous influence on the person that I'm still becoming, and I'm grateful for that. I met both of them fairly early on, not only in my career, but in my transition to the Twin Cities. I lived in Chicago, Bill and I were in Chicago, the company brought me here, and that was a tough transition for me. It was a big move, big new job. I was enjoying the work, but it was a difficult transition to the city, to build community, to find my tribe. And I was traveling a lot and still traveling a lot. And so I was fortunate to have these two, who I call a touchstone. They were focused not just on this sort of next job or career, they were helping me stay focused on my purpose, right? They were pushing me to think bigger, to stay connected to the meaning in my life. Certainly they'd give some life and career advice, but it was a higher order, which is why I called them touchstones. Mrs. King I met, I think it was 2001, doing a project through Target with her at the King Center, and at the end of the project, which was completed successfully, you remember that project? In fact, I have a picture of us when we got the King Center Award. I have an amazing picture of a group of us who had been a part of that project on my desk, and Laverne was in that picture, among many others that I get to see on a regular basis. But very meaningful project. But at the end of it, I got up the courage to ask her if she would be willing to be in my kitchen cabinet. I thought she's going to say no, she's going to be too busy. But I'm glad I did, because she said yes. And we, negotiated like how often we would meet, and I was surprised that she was quite generous with her time. At a minimum, we probably met quarterly, often more. She was available on phone. If something really intense was going on, I could fly down to meet her. And I was just grateful that she was willing to make space for me and to be brutally honest about what I was doing in my life and career. it was a safe space where I could talk about absolutely anything. And I was also struck by her grace in the reciprocity in the relationship, her willingness to not just be the teacher, but to also be a student was a lesson for me as well. So she saw that there were things I had learned, things that I was doing that would benefit her, and clearly there were experiences that she had that were benefiting me. And I just will never forget all that she continues to teach me, quite frankly, because I still call upon her on a very regular basis. And I know it sounds a little crazy, but I speak to her, she's with me. Very, very important to me. And then Bruce Dayton, older white gentleman who I thought when I first got actually it was a combination of a typed note and a handwritten note, but a very classic note on very formal, lovely stationery. And I had just gotten promoted and was taking over the Target Foundation. We had transitioned the brand from Dayton Hudson to Target, and the foundation was transitioning. And he sent me a lovely personalized note and a book that was the history of his family, who had started the company, and the history of their philanthropic giving and their purpose and mission. And I thought, oh my, he is doing this to kind of give me the business, but don't screw up the family legacy. That's how I saw this lovely little note. But I decided I had some good home training, and so I should return that note with a thank you. And I did, so I wrote a note back. And then he wrote another note. I was like, this is a game, we're gonna do a game now. He's writing another note. And then the next note said, I'd like you to meet me for lunch at the Minneapolis Club. And I was like, what's that? Like, what do I wear? Where is this place? Will they let me in? Like, I'm not sure this is for me. And so I show up there, nervous, and I armor up though too, right? I was like ready. He's gonna dress me down and give me the list of things I have to do. And instead, he put me at ease. We sat at his table, and we started to talk about our origin stories. We found gold in our roots first, and got to know one another, and found out that we had some things that connected us beyond the role that I was in.
You just had more gold.
Yeah. Literally more gold. Yeah. A lot more gold. Yeah. Real gold.
That's good.
Mine was gold plated. Yeah. Fake gold for sure for me. But you know what he said? He said, I want you to know that you belong here. We came here. This is the place where I come and have important meetings and are here with friends and family and business associates. And I want you to be here because I want you to feel like you belong here too. This is a place where you should be too. He said, so if you're willing, then we will have our annual meeting here at the club. And I was like, oh, righty now. Okay. We'll have, that would be lovely. I would love to have this annual meeting.
I'll be here next year.
Serves like a movie. I'll see you next year. And so what happened though, in the stakeholder work I did, our CEO was very close to him, Bob Ulrich, had a very deep relationship with him, and he shared that relationship. And so as big things were happening in the company, when it was time to update Bruce, like he's like, you tell Bruce. Like, what, but shouldn't you? He's like, no. I'm like, well, technically I'm probably better at sharing the messages anyway. If I'm being candid, right? And he's like, yeah, you do it. And so I would periodically call him if there was a big company decision, even though he was not connected to the company. It was a courtesy, I thought. Even back then, I'm like, he should be on the list. We should be talking to him. He should know what was going on. And that would lead to another conversation. And then what I thought was really magical, this went on for 15 years. Wow. Like this person who I thought was, maybe gonna have it in for me, turned into somebody who was a very meaningful part of my life for 15 years until he passed away. And in fact, when his health was waning and we could no longer meet at the club, he wanted to, and his family and the doctor gave permission to some folks to continue to meet with him, but that would need to be at his home. And I was allowed to continue our meetings, but at his home. And that was meaningful to me, back to the love letter to life. Like, you develop these trusted relationships, and even then I'd update him on a little bit about the company, but all the things you're not supposed to talk about, religion, politics, all the things you're told not to do, we'd talk about it all. But he also had a love for community, so we talk about what's happening in the community, for volunteerism, for philanthropy, for art and culture. He had an amazing collection of art, and when it was hard for him to walk, and he did have a wheelchair, and I would wheel him around, and we'd do art tours in the house, which was fun, and I'd mix them up so we could do them all, so we could come back and have another kind of section to go through, and it was just lovely. Like, what about this inspired you, or how does it make you feel, or what memory does it conjure? And he loved the environment, and so we sometimes would sit on the back porch and talk about the wetlands and other things in the environment. But my point there is these two very different people opened up their lives and their talent and their treasures and their wisdom to me in ways that I think made me better, and in some small way I hope that I made them better as well, and I endeavor to pay that forward, the gifts that they gave me.
See, when I'm having these conversations, and then now I'm like, I think your next book should be like, I have like ideas for your next book. I have big ideas.
Let's work on your book first.
I mean, so I'm gonna skip past that.
I'm calling you out to call you in.
Okay, receive. I have more questions. We don't have a lot more time, and I want to make sure there's at least time for a couple more questions if you all have them. And so one of the questions I had written down here was about why storytelling is so important in leadership. I don't even know if you need to answer that, because I think you just demonstrated that. And Bruce Dayton saying to you, "You belong here," inside of the Minneapolis Club.
Right.
At that time, speaks to me about what we're experiencing now with the rolling back of things, and the concern about where we're headed. And while we're trying to figure out words and big actions, that was just a complete demonstration of what it means to be in community. To say to someone who is navigating new space or navigating something, you belong here, right? Like, you belong here. It's not even a lot of words.
But powerful.
But obviously you remembered them.
And he lived it, right? And so I do think while we can't control other people, we can control ourselves. Like, what will we do with this precious time that we have on this earth? I can try to influence others, but I can attempt to do what I can do. Do what you can with what you've got from where you are, right? And that was something he could do, and he did. It was like a gift.
What did you learn about yourself as you wrote this?
I learned that I'm still a work in progress, right? Still on a journey, still learning a lot about myself, and still committed to being of service and making an impact. When you make a big transition like I've just made, I did pause and reflect on my personal purpose statement. I tried to hold myself accountable to the things I was writing. Is it still right? Am I still true? What will I do in this next season of my life to be of service? Do I have the energy? Do I have the fuel to do that? What will that look like when you don't have a Fortune 30 company behind you? And I realized I can do a hell of a lot, right? It looks different, but still meaningful, still high impact, just extraordinary. And so I have found that to be freeing and inspiring and challenging. I mean, there are things I'm like, oh, geez, I don't know how to do that. There's been a lot of that. When you have done something for a really long time, you get really good at it. Like, I was really good at what I did, I thought, right? And I had to become, starting up my own little business and a website and a book and all these things. I was a rookie again. And that was very, and still is, quite humbling. But it's also energizing. like, I'm curious, I love to learn, I'm learning a ton, making lots of mistakes, but it's still, it's joyous though. I find learning and growing and making those mistakes where you're learning to be joyful. And it gets me excited that, you know, God willing, if I'm like my great-great-grandmother, if I make it to 105, I got a long time to go. A lot more to learn, a lot more to do.
The purpose journey's long. Laysha, were you able to reflect and celebrate yourself?
That's a, ooh, that's a, ooh. Ooh. If I were being honest, I would say no. That's a deep question. No, if I'm being honest. I'm still the hardest on myself. No question.
I think it's a hard thing for leaders, especially when your bar is so high, that you just keep moving because that is what you're supposed to do. And in the pause, you know, being able to say, I did that.
Yeah, I don't do that very well.
One thing you did do really well is write this book.
With help, by the way, like with help, and so. I had an amazing team. I did assemble an amazing team. In addition to the names called in the stories in the book, you can never name all of the people that you would love to name, and so which was difficult. But in the acknowledgments, I tried to add a few more names, but even then, you just can't. And so it was, again, a love letter to life in a way, to be able just to lift up the names of the people who poured into me, with the hope that by doing this, I can pour into others at more scale than I've been able to do when you're talking to people one-on-one. I would love to also say I took a bold leap. The leadership development firm who helped me with reflection questions in the book, I went to them and proposed another partnership deal with them and asked if they would kind of take one of their core products. They do work with lots of large organizations around the globe and develop leadership development content. And so some of the content's called a workout, and they've got a whole framework around it. And they've not worked with an author before, so even helping with the reflection questions was the first. And I asked, might they consider developing some exclusive workouts connected to my book that I could offer for free to my community. And after some negotiations, they agreed that we would be on a learning journey together. I pitched it, of course, maybe a future book of business for them. And so the group is called Adeption, and if you go onto my website, layshaWard.com, it's there and available free of charge. And there are 3 workouts that will help you, in addition to the book, kind of take the extra step after you've reflected, but to write that personal purpose statement. One of the workouts will help you continue to drill on that. The second workout will help you build out and think about that kitchen cabinet, that personal and professional board of directors. And the third workout really focuses on how, with intention, you are able to say a strategic yes and a strategic no. So would just love if you have an opportunity to check it out and participate in it, or share it with people that you mentor and sponsor, because it's, again, another gift that is connected to the mission and the purpose of why I wrote this book.
Good. Thank you. She is willing to take a couple questions before we go to the front. So if anyone has one, we probably have time for 2. If there's any in the room. All right, Shannon Lemon.
Hello, and just thank you for sharing your story and your progress. And what I love is it's continuous evolution. And you sit there humbly with so much accomplished behind you. And it's just exciting, like what happens if you make it to 105. But the little girl from Indiana, does she have a vision of what's next? Are there in your service?
That's
Do you
a
have a
great question. You know, it's interesting. The vision for me is to, one, be still and present and see where this unfolds. And a part of the vision is being realized. Even the partnership with Adeption was a part of something I had articulated that I wanted to do, but just didn't know how. And so I had to be still and quiet my mind and just continue to think about how else beyond the book might I be able to be of service and help people on their journey. And the more I worked at that firm, it struck me that that might be a vehicle. Then I figured I had to talk them into it, because I certainly couldn't afford to, do the traditional sort of payout for the services that they provide. And yet, in the faith-based tradition, they say God is good.
All the time.
Right? And so I'm like, leap of faith, I'm going to ask. And they came back, yes. And then we negotiated and landed in a place where that is a part of the extended vision. How might we come together around a shared purpose around leadership development in ways that will benefit both of us? And I don't know how long that will last with them. We have a term to this agreement, and we'll work through it. And I'll continue to think about ways that might evolve. And so it's been out podcasts, conversations like this with smaller groups. That's how I'm kind of bringing them. One of the people I'm very close to, Mike Heider, who Blanche and I know quite well. Mike said, "This is your ministry." I'm like, I hadn't thought about it in that way, but knowing Mike, that makes sense that Mike would say it in that way. And so I am called to do it, and I think the avenues that will pull me to do this will, likely take a circuitous route, but more to come there. The last thing I'd share is a Portfolio for Life includes on some public company boards, nonprofit and civic work, very, very important to me. Naz is in the house.
Naz is in the house.
Steves are in the house.
Otherwise known as Sandra.
Yes, and so that's super meaningful to me. And I also just recently joined the board of a small private company called Macro, and would encourage you to check them out too. Macro is a multi-platform media company, and they have several verticals of business, but are really looking to lift up stories from women, people of color, and other underrepresented communities. See some purpose alignment there, right?
I also see some themes, and you asking people for things. Right?
Yeah, I do.
Coretta Scott King, and then, so there's something about the courage to just ask for what you want and be okay with the answer. And I imagine that you were probably told some no's, but you got some really damn good at yeses in there. Okay, we got one more question, and then we'll move.
Hi, Blanche. Yeah.
Okay, well, the second part is want to say thank you for continuing to share what you know, what you love, what you bring. Your book will help a lot of people, and a lot of people who need help. So thank you.
Blanche. Thank you.
What an awesome way to conclude this, and what you just shared, which is what she's offering will help leading her life, leading like she means it, and in gratitude. And part of what I was hearing is around also just curating joy, curating people, curating the type of life you want around purpose. And I appreciate the opportunity again to be here, to have read this book, to be inspired, and then to have context, because it's one thing to hear your voice, because I listened to it actually.
Oh, I recorded the audio.
Yeah, she
too.
did.
Yeah.
So I'm like, hey, Laysha, hey. In my car, bathtub, I'm like, hey, Laysha.
Did I talk back?
No, yeah, you was talking back to me, girl. You was talking all the way back to me, and what a joyful period for you to transition in purpose and such intentionality. And we celebrate you. We love you here. We love what you're doing. We're watching. We're paying attention. That's why we are here. We thank you. Laysha will go up front for about 30 minutes to do some signing and meeting and greeting. And can we just say thank you?
Thank you.